In this video, we set out to answer a question. How can we keep our greens fresh until it's time to cook? Our theory was that some types of storage would work much better than others. So we researched all the DIY options and even got some specialty products and decided to test them side by side. Going into the test, we thought if the herbs still looked fresh after 2 weeks, it would be a success. So here I am, 2 weeks later, with everything from crisp to wilty. Hi, I'm Rob from Urban Leaf. If you're new to the channel or haven't heard of us before, we help city dwellers fall in love with gardening and be part of a food system that puts the planet and its people first. Before I tell you what happened, let me show you how we set up the test. First, we took a trip to the farmer's market to pick out some beautiful, fresh greens and herbs. We decided to try out 3 very different types of plants. Dill, which has thin, delicate leaves. Kale, which has thick, tough leaves, and parsley, which is somewhere in the middle. I washed them, patted them dry, and picked the most uniform sprigs from the bunch before starting the tests. It kills me that I usually have to toss nice produce like this out just because I don't eat it fast enough. So thinking ahead, last week I scoured the internet for the products and DIY tips that promised me they would keep my greens fresh. Now I've got them in hand and I'm all ready to set them up. Some really popular DIY versions involves putting them in a glass, like flowers in a vase. Some people said it worked even better if you did this and put a baggie on top, so I wanted to try that as well. A small detail, but the advice I saw over and over was to pull off the dead leaves and cut the bottom of the stems, so you can see me doing that in each of these setups. There were also people who were in the sealed container camp. I'm just using a baggie here, but plastic containers were also common. In fact, my co-founder Nate told me I had to try one in a container with a wet paper towel, so here we are with container contender number 4. One criticism of the sealed container is that the plastic is trapping gases that cause the plants to wilt faster. So instead, those people recommend wrapping them in a tea towel. For the products I want to test, I looked on Reddit and Amazon and some trusted zero-waste shops and blogs. First, this Herb Saver is the top recommendation by America's Test Kitchen. It looks a lot like the mason jar with the baggie, so we'll see how it compares. These swag bags were something I found on a zero-waste blog. They're nice because they're cotton and they don't have any plastic, and compared to the DIY tea towel, it's got an absorbent middle layer that claims to keep the greens from wilting as quickly. Finally, these beeswax wraps might be a good balance between being breathable and locking in moisture, so I wanted to give them a shot. No experiment would be complete without a control, so I'm also just going to chuck in a bunch with no container at all. A lot of these looked really similar, especially between some of the DIY options and the specialized products. Like, how different is the fabric of the swag bag from just a regular tea towel? Isn't the mason jar with the baggie kind of just like the Herb Saver? Which got me wondering, will I really see major differences? Okay, so after just a few days, I was dying to see how the plants were looking, so I decided to take a peek. This is after 3 days, and the containers are already showing some differences in their performance. The control is doing well, as in it's doing really bad. These plants are already looking questionable. On the other hand, the bouquet style ones seem to be holding up pretty well. The dill might even be a little bit perkier than when I first put it in. Also, here's my beeswax wrap experiment. It's not going great. I'm interested to see in how it does in the long run, but I'm not too hopeful. Okay, so here we are 2 weeks out and we've got a huge range of performance. So starting in last place is my control. I would definitely call this unedible. The next level of performance I'm calling bad. These are things I'm not quite sure I would eat, and it seems like they were all part of this wrapping style. So my tea towel, let's take a look. These are, as you can hear, just incredibly dry. A good way to dry your herbs, but they did not hold in the moisture adequately. A swag bag. This is also dry. They're not quite as dry. See like a little pliability, but yeah, pretty inedible. In all fairness, I let this go like a week and a half without re-wetting it. It does say that you should wet it every week. And last up, I have my beeswax wrap. Let's take a look in there. And this is like wetter still, but also like even the kale is bad. The dill is pretty pathetic. On to the next level. This, I would say, it's like edible but not fresh. I guess we'll start with the just plastic baggie with no paper towel. They're looking okay. Actually, they smell a little funkier than I was expecting, so maybe we'll downgrade these. My bouquet with, this is sort of the same thing. It's like, you'd eat it if you didn't have any other dill, and like you'd probably get away with it, but not the best. And this is my bouquet that didn't have any covering. You can see the dill definitely, it's kind of the opposite problem. It's starting to dry out a bit. And yeah, my kale's a little floppy, but it's certainly not crispy. Parsley looks good. Parsley looks good. I'd eat that. That looks very good to me. The wet paper towel wrapping the herbs. I'm going to give it a smell because it smells a little bit better. Yeah, they're like a little fresher. That's a snap, so maybe that's a more fair thing. It's standing up on its own a bit. Parsley's looking okay, and kale's looking pretty good. It still has like a slight tinge of that, like, I don't want to call it funk because it's not quite that bad, but like, we'll see how the best ones do. Tied for first are my herb saver and my bouquet with a bag. And let's just take a look at these herbs. Let me give them the... Yeah, there's nothing funky about those. Same here. Everything looks good. And you can see the water level really didn't drop nearly as much because that baggie kind of helped hold in the humidity. And here's my herb saver. You can see that's also pretty filled with water. And you know what? We might actually have a winner between these two, but let's take a look. I like the dill. It's like such a sensitive herb. And you can see here, like part of it was touching against, I think, the plastic baggie, so it did start to get wilty. That's why dill's interesting. Too dry and it like shrivels up. If it's against water, it'll get wilty. And here's my herb saver dill, which really is, I'm pretty blown away, I gotta say. That is looking incredibly fresh. So 1 point for the herb saver. All right, on to our parsley. Let's see. Yeah, again, the herb saver, just like the top stayed a little drier. I think that's because it wasn't a baggie. It like has a big volume it can go in. So these two are very close, but we'll give the edge to the herb saver. Kale looks good. Kale looks good. Kale's a toughie. It's okay wherever. Like any casual experiment, there's still some questions I've got. Would the swag bag had worked better if I wet it more frequently? Why did some of these products work and some didn't? Should different herbs and greens be stored differently? If you've got follow-up tests you'd like us to run, please let me know in the comments. I've also written up a buying guide for herb savers. It's got the info in the video, some power rankings that compare the cost, sustainability, and ease of use, and this is where I'll update you with any new information we get as we learn.